Ja, hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Episode von Data Explorer. Heute ist der 18. Februar 2025 und das ist die Ausgabe Nummer 31. Wir unterhalten uns heute über Open Storage. Das wohl bekannteste Produkt in diesem Bereich ist TrueNAS. Entwickelt wird TrueNAS von iX Systems. Kürzlich gab es ein paar interessante News. Unter anderem gehört dazu, dass mit den neuen Releases von TrueNAS der BSD-Kern endgültig der Vergangenheit angehört. Warum das so ist und wie es weitergeht, darüber werden wir gleich ein bisschen mehr erfahren. Außerdem gibt es eine neue Version von OpenZFS mit vielen interessanten neuen Funktionen, die in der neuen Community Edition bereits eingeflossen sind. Auf der letzten IT Press Tour habe ich iX Systems im Silicon Valley besucht und heute ist zumindest virtuell der Executive Vice President Brett Davis bei uns zu Gast. Brett spricht zwar ein wenig Deutsch, aber er bat mich darum, das Gespräch in Englisch zu führen. Daher wechseln wir jetzt ins Englische. Welcome, Brett.
Thank you, Kirsten, very much. That sounded like an amazing introduction. I wish I understood more of it.
We will send you a translation or transcript afterwards. So, first of all, for all of those who don't know you, please would you please be so kind to introduce yourself and your role at iX Systems?
Sure thing. So, my name is Brett Davis. My title is Executive Vice President, and really my role here at iX is to oversee our marketing, sales, and product management divisions.
You're quite a long time with iX, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah. In fact, gosh, I don't want to date myself, but I mean, it's been over 20 years now.
Wow.
You know, I was part of the founding team when iX got started in 2003.
Cool. So how did you get involved with iX Systems, or now we know you founded or co-founded it. So what's your background in the storage industry?
Yeah, well, my background is actually more in computer and server PC hardware. And so I got involved as the initial and only salesperson at iX Systems at the time. We were 4 people. And really, we just got started. It was a kind of a 2 guys in a garage sort of scenario. It was an employee asset purchase from a previous company called BSDI, which I can go into as well. And so we just got started, built the business brick by brick from there, and here we are, 20 something years later, still doing it.
Wow, that's an interesting story and classic. So the garage. I have been, by the way, at the garage of the HPE garage to see where the Silicon Valley has been invented or founded. So TrueNAS itself is a very well-known brand. We mentioned iX Systems a few times already, but few people know iX Systems, the company behind TrueNAS. What's the company's history and how has it evolved over the years?
Yeah, you're exactly right. The amount of people that know the iX Systems brand versus our TrueNAS brand, which is our product, I mean, it's no comparison, right? I mean, I always like to tell the story about how we would go to trade shows and we would have an iX Systems booth, and over again, people would come up to the booth and say, iX Systems, what do you guys do? I've never heard of you. And we would say, oh, have you heard of TrueNAS? Or have you heard of FreeNAS? And they would say, oh, TrueNAS, yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah, we're using that at home. I'm using that in the office. We're using that at work. I didn't realize that was you guys. So, it's a really common theme that we're far better known for TrueNAS than we are for iX Systems. But speaking about the company, as I mentioned, we were founded in 2002. So I started a year later. And it was originally an employee buyout of the former hardware division of BSDI, who was the corporate side of the BSD operating system, also kind of where FreeBSD spawned from. And so that company's roots date all the way back to the foundation of Unix in the 1960s. So our open source heritage as a company, as iX and TrueNAS, dates about as far back as you can go in computing. And so iX Systems began its life as a server manufacturer. And our goal was to qualify our server hardware for customers who, at the time, were using what was considered obscure operating systems, things like FreeBSD, NetBSD, OpenBSD, all this obscure variants of Linux. And when nobody was doing that back in 2002, 2003, and early 2000s, basically either people were using some sort of commercial Unix or they were using Windows Server or something like that. So there wasn't a lot of our competitors at the time, the big who's who in servers, IBM, HPE, Dell, etc. They weren't doing any certification or qualification of their hardware with those quote unquote free operating systems, and so that's how we made our niche. And then around 2012, so we'll just fast forward quite a way, we shifted our focus to storage with TrueNAS, and which was at the time known as FreeNAS. And really, that's a long story in itself, but TrueNAS is now where we continue our major focus today. In fact, we're really kind of fading the IX Systems brand into the background to just focus on furthering the TrueNAS brand, just because it has thousands of times the mind share that IX does. So it doesn't really make sense for us to build both brands. So we'll probably see us in the future just focusing a lot more on the TrueNAS brand specifically as both the product and the company and the community.
This is an impressive story, and it shows how deep are your roots in the open source community. So I want to know a little bit more about the philosophy behind TrueNAS. TrueNAS is you self-promoted as the open storage, and open source. It's so deep in your DNA. Please tell me a little bit more about the philosophy.
Sure. Yeah, we kind of refer to it as enterprise storage for all, is just in a cheeky way. But really, I mean, I think the fundamental thing is that as data becomes, everyone knows this, as the data becomes ever more critical and important, companies are struggling to keep up with the growing costs of storing and managing massive amounts of data. And most vendors, most of our competitors, are offering basically the same solutions to those problems that were invented in the 90s, right? And frankly, in 2025, companies are often tired of paying this kind of enterprise storage tax, we call it, which is using these traditional methods and the vendors that offer them. Really, those vendors' goal is really to figure out ways to lock customers into their ecosystems, right? So TrueNAS is really, the core philosophy of TrueNAS is to turn all of that on its head by democratizing enterprise storage. So our North Star is to make TrueNAS, really, ultimately, to make TrueNAS the most versatile and trusted storage that provides more value per dollar, per enterprise storage budget dollar, than anything else on the market. And frankly, we've already achieved that vision. Our goal now is to just elevate the awareness of TrueNAS in the enterprise storage space as much as possible. And so that's the mission we're on now.
Okay, that's a bold goal, what you said yourself. How would you say does TrueNAS fit into the broader ecosystem of storage solutions? So you just mentioned a little bit that's enterprise storage and what are the goals you want to achieve, but so in the matter of storage solutions technologies, what sets it apart from other storage solutions in the market or also technology-wise? Sure.
So I like to think about this question as, breaking down the market. I'll show you I'll describe how we look at this at the storage enterprise storage market. So I'll throw some market statistics at you. So in 2025, the total enterprise storage capacity under management is estimated to be 5.5 zettabytes, which is to say 5.5 million petabytes. And the way that breaks down is, of that 5.5 million petabytes, 60 to 70% is deployed mostly by hyperscalers and then a handful of large enterprise. So maybe 10 hyperscalers and maybe 10 to 15 other large enterprises. So That means that less than 25 companies around the globe are storing around 3.5 million petabytes, right? So what about the other 2 million petabytes? That's all other companies combined. So of those 2 million petabytes that are deployed, it's estimated that 90% of those are less than 30 petabytes. So 30 petabytes or less. And that's how we view the market. And that's the market that TrueNAS addresses. So while we have the ability to make namespaces larger than 30 petabytes, I chose to highlight 30 petabytes because it's the maximum that can currently be served by one of our biggest hybrid systems, the M series.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, that's really only a hardware limitation currently. It's not a software limitation. So that number will increase over time. But yeah, that's how we view that market. So that's about 1.8 million petabytes in terms of total available market for TrueNAS. And so how we look at that, if we drill down a little bit further, even though TrueNAS says NAS in the name, it's so much more today than just network attached storage, right? It provides more than just file storage access. It also provides block and object storage and app storage, which we'll talk about in a bit. But so virtually any storage over a network in all flash and hybrid disk and flash configurations. So that's capable of addressing a majority of the use cases present in that market that I described. Now, to the second part of your question about what sets TrueNAS apart, I think there's a handful of major things. So the first, you've already covered it a little bit. TrueNAS is open source. We've got a massive user community. The software is built on open standards. So it's designed specifically to integrate as easily as possible into existing environments and not lock customers in. We like to say that the only way that we want to lock our customers in is with a customer experience that they don't want to leave. But there's nothing on the technical side that locks them into it. So I think the second thing, and you mentioned this a little bit too, I think is the OpenZFS file system. And the OpenZFS file system's ability to protect data is pretty much unmatched. And it's renowned for that. Those aren't my words. That's kind of just the large consensus, I think, around the ZFS file system. So the third thing is I believe that we're really the only storage solution that's designed to solve the cost problem for companies. And I'm not talking about using fancy TCO models to justify a high price like you often see other vendors do, but we're actually looking to deliver upfront cost savings and make an easy to understand total cost of ownership conversation. So, and then the fourth thing I think is a little bit, I would say, is our support. And I know that every company probably says this, that their support is great. But if you look at our customer reviews on Gartner Peer Insights, where we've won customer choice for the past 2 years in a row, you'll notice that 90% of the reviews 90% of those reviews on there will mention the support experience. So for us, as a smaller company than Dell and NetApp and Pure, our reputation is everything. And so when it's so important to us that when a customer chooses TrueNAS, that we don't take that trust for granted. And I really hope that shines through, and I think it shines through in the reviews that we have too. So yeah. I would say that's kind of, long answer, but that's kind of how I think about the market and how we're different.
Yeah. So two things I heard out of your answer. Limitations are only in hardware. The more performant the hardware gets, or the more capacity a hardware provides, the more capacity your storage systems can solve. Is that true?
Yes. I actually think that we're kind of in an era of storage where, because of the capacity of hard drives today, because of the capacity of NVMe drives, and frankly, because of the performance of NVMe, that we're sort of in a post-performance era for most storage applications. What I mean is that if you rewind 10 years ago and you looked at the marketing for everybody in the storage industry, it was performance. And there were ways to differentiate yourself with performance. Today, the bottleneck in storage is elsewhere. It's typically not at the drive level. NVMe has sort of leveled the playing field for most storage companies. And then again, I mean, we look at the market up to 30 petabytes. As we'll be able to scale that in the future and go beyond that. It's really kind of actually an arbitrary limitation on our side and how we design our products, because we think it serves the majority of the market. But of course, there are applications that need more than 30 petabytes, and there are niche solutions for those. And like I said, we can address that in a single namespace, but in terms of having parallel file system, that's not something that we have today. And so again, it's a small fraction of the market, and we leave that to other vendors.
Okay, got it. From a customer's perspective, I know customers love you. Why to focus on open source storage? Yeah.
I thank you for saying that. I mean, you're talking to an open source zealot here, but so I'll try to keep it as objective as possible. I think, in my opinion, the major reasons customers should care about open source is really it gives them full control over their data and helps them avoid vendor lock-in, which we talked about a little bit. I also think that the transparency of open source means that they don't really have to trust us. Everything is out there. Our code is auditable. And it really, all of that enhances long-term data security and business continuity. I mean, Gartner had put out an article that I encourage everybody to read, which laid out the case for why open source solutions are really no more risky than proprietary closed solutions, and in some cases far less so. So, I think that message is really getting out there to the market. Another reason is our massive user community. Obviously, just having we have hundreds of thousands of active community members. We've got millions of deployments of the software at this point, and so just being able to tap into that massive source of knowledge that's freely available out there, I think, is a huge advantage. And then the fourth thing is really a simple one, which is we have a free community edition of TrueNAS, and that can be used to test drive the software, or it can be used in situations where the data isn't necessarily critical or doesn't need support, like scratch space or labs or things like tertiary backups, et cetera. So that's just really a powerful tool that's available out there to help drive costs down when data is less critical. But I think in a nutshell, I'd say while those things are really important and valuable to customers, I think of open source as less about what drives customers to buy TrueNAS and really more about the kind of undeniable efficiency gains it gives us as a business that we can then use to pass those savings on to our customers. So it's less about why they buy and it's more about how we do it, I think, is what I would say. And it's the primary reason why we're able to provide them with so much more value for their money, as I mentioned before, than competitors that are 10 or 100 times our size. It just provides us tons of efficiency on the development side, and frankly, and on the marketing side and all of those things. Developing closed source software is just harder, more resource intensive. So we like to pass any of those savings on to our customers.
Many customers avoid to use open source based solutions because of the administration or maintenance effort. I know that you also provide enterprise ready solutions. What else do you do to support your customers in installing, administrating, maintaining, and working with the solutions?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so we have a community edition, which I mentioned, and we have our enterprise offerings, which are full featured storage appliances. And those are fully supported end to end. They come with deployment support, so that we help customers bring them online. And the goal of our enterprise solutions is really to give customers access to all the benefits of open source while removing any of the risk or complexity. So that's the whole goal behind enterprise, because sometimes customers do think about that. They say, "Oh, open source, so it's going to be it's going to be harder to use, or it's going to require more resources on my side. But no, I mean, that's the whole purpose of Enterprise or TrueNAS Enterprise, is to be able to remove any of that complexity. And that's something that we take care of, from hardware selection to, again, to deployment, to break fix, to end-to-end support. And also we have professional services that we provide, all of those things to make it as easy as possible to onboard with TrueNAS.
This is really an important point, and I think a lot of enterprises now think more likely about using TrueNAS also. You already mentioned the scalability scalability of the ZFS file system. What else would you say is the top benefits of the ZFS file systems? Why did you choose that?
Yeah. I mean, I think I mentioned earlier. I mean, it's called the last word in file systems, and that really has to do with some people call it that, obviously, and that's really due to its endless scalability and performance, by design. So ZFS is an acronym for zettabyte file system for a reason, and that's because even though it was designed and originally invented and released in 2005. It was really designed for the storage challenges of today and tomorrow. I mean, frankly, no one's tried it at a zettabyte scale yet, but theoretically, it should function that way. So scalability is a big one. I think secondly, it's really renowned for one of the great features about it is its self-healing ability to keep data intact. So it's a copy on write file system, and it uses checksums for every block of data. And this allows it basically to detect and correct any silent data corruption, also called bit rot. And basically what happens, if corruption is detected, ZFS automatically repairs the data using a redundant copy, either from its mirror or RAID Z, etc. So really nothing maintains data integrity like ZFS. Now, you asked for three things. I think the other thing that's really cool about ZFS is its advanced storage management. So the file system and storage layers are closely integrated. So there's no need for a separate volume manager. And this allows it to support things like pooling, snapshots, cloning, deduplication, and compression on its own. And so it's not a separate volume manager to provide those things. So that integrated nature gives it some additional power. And I think one of the other things I'll add is that ZFS is one of the most proven and trusted file systems in existence. One of the old adages about file systems is they say it takes 10 years for a file system to be ready for beta. So, ZFS is now, this year marks really its 20-year existence, and of course, millions of deployments. So obviously it's proven.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. You mentioned before that one of the great benefits of your benefits is the community. All the benefits you get from developers community, you give or pass on to your customers, and this is one reason why what it makes so efficiently and cost-wise also. How does TrueNAS support and contribute the open source ZFS community? What do you give back to them?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I'll say, TrueNAS has put ZFS, Open ZFS, into more hands than all other ZFS distributions combined. And that's including Sun Microsystems, who developed it, and Oracle, who acquired Sun. As I said, we've got millions of deployments now. So we're out there evangelizing, putting it into as many hands as possible, spreading the ZFS love, as it were. But more pointed, we have several of the top 10 developers, that we employ, developers and contributors to the OpenZFS code base. So we're actively involved in that community. And a couple of examples, over the past couple of years alone, we sponsored two really important projects. We sponsored the development of, which were the Fast Dedupe project and the RAID Z expansion project. And Fast Dedupe is basically what the new and improved deduplication feature is called in ZFS. ZFS has always had deduplication, but it's always had some limitations. And so we've really uncapped those limitations recently. The other thing is RAID Z expansion. So RAID Z is what ZFS calls its version of RAID. And this was kind of a long requested feature that what it does is it allows users to dynamically add disks to an existing RAID without having to destroy or recreate the pool. So you can just grow a RAID incrementally, which wasn't previously possible. So there's just a couple of examples of some major features and projects that have been long desired by the ZFS community that IX was behind.
Cool. I think these are also the features are in the new OpenZFS version, already integrated in the community edition of TrueNAS, and will be expected, I guess, in the middle of the year for the enterprise versions.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the we just hit beta last week for our next version, which is called Fangtooth, and that will be ready for enterprise customers. I think our current launch date for Community Edition is set for April, and then June for the enterprise, when it'll be ready for our enterprise customers.
Yeah, we are waiting it. We are here in Germany. We are very, very partly over-regulated. So we have a lot of regulations here, and companies do a lot of fulfilling the requirements of these laws and regulations and guidelines and everything. How does TrueNAS support compliance with regulatory requirements or industry standards for data protection?
Yeah, I mean, I think this ties into our security story, which is, some of the things we talked about with enterprise grade ZFS protection that we've kind of already gone over, self-healing, the data integrity, bit raw protection, et cetera. So that's, on the data protection side. We also provide really powerful encryption and access controls to the system, ransomware protection from immutable snapshots and rollback capabilities. And then, of course, the tools necessary for network security and compliance, which I can, and then, of course, through automated backups and disaster recovery, that's also how we're kind of helping customers with the data protection side. Now, how this applies to compliance and regulatory requirements, our goal is really to provide customers with the necessary tool set within TrueNAS and assistance to achieve most compliance and regulatory requirements, whether that's HIPAA or GDPR in EU or SOC 2, FedRAMP compliance, NIST standards is kind of a general standards body that people look to provide security compliance, et cetera. I mean, it's a long list. The list of compliance is major, and it's growing every single day, especially in Europe. So we have to stay on top of it. And our goal, again, is just to make sure that we provide all the base tools for customers to pick and choose the necessary ones for them to achieve compliance on their side.
Many solutions out there in the market integrate AI, artificial intelligence on their solutions, and also require cloud platforms or connections to cloud-based services. What's about TrueNAS? I think I can operate TrueNAS completely on premises without any connection to any resource outside my network.
Absolutely. In fact, we have a lot of customers that are using them and using systems in air-gapped environments where they don't have the ability to reach out, and that's a completely viable way of managing a TrueNAS. So we provide that, absolutely.
And I still can use also the True Command.
Yes, yeah. So True Command is our single pane of glass management. If you have a fleet of TrueNAS systems, you can use True Command to manage them all. And so that can be done via the cloud, or that can be run locally and in an air-gap situation as well.
So no cloud instances needed to use True Command, the central management platform.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's a deployment option, but it's certainly not a requirement. We have so many government customers that have no ability to access the outside the world, so it's important. It's critical that we provide them with that.
Yeah, this is why I asked for it. Within our community, we have a lot of those, friends of us, customers. So, how do you ensure the security of the open source components you use? How do you control that?
Yeah, that this question gets asked a lot. I mean, we take a multi-layered approach here too. So we do the same things that most commercial companies do, where we make sure that a lot most storage companies are using open source components in their systems. It's whether or not they're actually telling the world that they're doing that, I think, is the reality. So, but for us, we have to make sure that we have a secure software supply chain, and we do that through using only verified builds from only vetted open source libraries. We use cryptographic code signing, and our goal is to just make sure that we're ensuring authenticity of any open source components and making sure we're preventing tampering. The other thing is, of course, continuous security monitoring externally. We have rapid CVE patch management and rapid response to any security vulnerabilities. We have an entire team about that. So that's focused on that. But that's pretty standard. And of course we do rigorous internal code review as well as both internal and external audits. So making sure that we've got many eyes on it. But these are all pretty standard things I think that most vendors do. What sets us apart, being open, is that we have security through transparency. So what I mean by that is that our code is community reviewed, audited, and takes an open approach. Basically, no code hits our repo without hundreds of thousands of eyes and people seeing it, reviewing it, scrutinizing it. And none of our competitors have this luxury. And so we call it the world's largest QA team. So not only are they helping us on the security side, they're also helping us on the quality side as well. And so this transparency is really one of the reasons why I just mentioned TrueNAS is also so favored by governments and defense contractors, because the code is fully transparent and auditable. They can see every line of code that goes in there, and there's no question. There's no black box. They don't have to trust us again. They can go ahead and run their own audits as well. So customers do that and help us audit the code for us too. So many, many layers.
Would you also agree on that known CVEs are fixed much faster in your solutions than in other storage solutions, like closed source solutions, based on the community approach?
I think that whether or not they're fixed faster, I probably would have a hard time commenting, but I can tell you that we are aware of them faster probably and more public about them than, because we have to be, right? Everything is there in the open. We have no ability to hide any of that. So whereas a CVE might hit a closed source company, and because no one's looking at the code, they can wait a while before they let the world know that it's happened. For us, we have to be on top of it right away, because it will be very public when it happens. So that's it's incredibly important to us.
Very interesting aspect as well. I want to dig a little bit deeper into the customer's point of view. So, how do your customers typically use TrueNAS, and what are the common pain points that it solves? Don't say costs again. We had that already.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the best qualities I think of TrueNAS is its versatility. So, TrueNAS systems can be selected and configured for performance, or for scale, or for both, up to 30 petabytes. And that's to manage structured or unstructured data. So as we covered before, TrueNAS is a NAS, it's a SAN. It also manages object storage as well. So really where TrueNAS excels, though, is any workload where data integrity is critical. So you see TrueNAS commonly used in areas like media production, surveillance and CCTV, research. Lots of labs use TrueNAS, EDA, backups, of course. So it's also commonly used as shared storage and virtualization environments. That's often, our all-flash systems. And of course, not just VMware, but really any hypervisor. So it it covers a pretty broad spectrum of use cases, and and again can be configured to the needs of whatever the application is in most cases.
I see. Are there any specific industries or use cases where TrueNAS has seen significant adoption or growth recently?
Well, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but TrueNAS it's already used in over 60% of the Fortune 500.
No, you didn't mention that here.
Okay.
No, not yet.
Yeah, we put it on the front page of the website, so sometimes thanks for keeping me honest. So the appeal is pretty broad, but I think the areas that we're seeing a lot of growth currently are in healthcare and medical research, government and defense, which I've mentioned, automotive and manufacturing is actually a big area for us. I think I already mentioned media and entertainment, and that's really all kind of areas of a media development pipeline or content creation pipeline. So that's video game development, VFX studios, post production, et cetera, et cetera. It's used kind of everywhere in media and entertainment. And then also an area is, as I mentioned before, is research and higher education as well. So it's used in a lot of universities around the world.
So when we look at the current landscape, I think technologies like AI change the landscape of storage, change the requirements that applications have for storage. So what are the current trends and challenges in the storage industry you see?
Yeah, so I have a different take about AI storage, for example.
Is it AI storage or storage for AI?
Yeah, storage for AI, correct. So I have a different take on that, which is, I think, in 2023 and 2024, when, the AI bubble was exploding, we saw a lot of our competitors really changing their marketing tune, and say that they were storage for AI. But I think the reality is that there's only about 10% of AI workloads, which is really the training of LLMs, where you actually need a specific type of storage for AI. For the other 80 to 90% of AI workloads, which are mostly on the inference side, RAS, et cetera, existing storage is already good enough. So there's no need to invent something new. Most of that really is to catch marketing draft, right? To draft off of the AI craze. And frankly, for those 10%, the companies that are doing large language model training, there's not a lot of those actually. So, and while they use a lot of storage for those applications, again, there's not a lot of companies. We're talking about the hyperscalers here. We're talking about 25 companies or less. And what those companies are doing for their storage is not going to buy some kind of commercial, quote unquote, storage for AI. And maybe they have early on, but what they're all trying to do is develop their own internal storage based on open source tools, because that helps them capitalize on the economic advantages and the superior economics of using open source over using a commercial solution. So I have a little bit a take on it, but I will say that the two areas that we're looking to invest in really are in edge, and then to some extent on the inference side of AI. So TrueNAS is already a natural fit for edge deployments. Edge is kind of everything now. Sort of everything is the edge. People are saying data center is now your edge, et cetera. And so we're focusing on really the hardware side. So improved hardware solutions for more diverse edge applications, including things like liquid immersion solutions, which we're seeing at the edge sometimes. So making sure that we have liquid immersion capable systems. And this focus on the edge sort of dovetails also with our AI strategy, which is, again, more focused on the RAS and inference side, which actually doesn't need massive storage horsepower necessarily like the LLM training does. So those are kind of two areas that we're taking a look at and investing in, I'd say.
This is quite interesting. So, especially liquid cooling at the edge, I see a lot of liquid cooled solutions within the open compute environment or open compute bubble. They are totally in liquid cooled solutions and very, very sophisticated solutions I see there. You do not have something in place yet, don't you?
Well, we do build compute servers, and
Uh huh.
so we have done a lot of compute systems in liquid immersion.
Okay.
We've been doing that since 2018,
Uh huh.
um, but the question really is whether or not there's a market for storage there. And so that's kind of what we're investigating in the background. And we do
Mm-hmm.
have some pilot customers out there just testing some systems here and there. We're still trying to evaluate whether or not there's an actual market for the storage side, because most of the time people are
It's for
immersing
compute.
compute
Yeah.
systems, right? So yeah, so we're taking a look at that, and I think there are some interesting applications, but it's still early phases.
Okay. But you recently announced a new hardware platform for the Edge, the
Yeah,
RH. I don't
yeah, yeah.
remember. Quite sure.
You almost
I
got
wrote
it.
about it, but I don't remember. Oh my
You
God.
almost got it. Yeah. So our H series platform was announced earlier last year, and then we just
Mhm.
announced a week ago or 2 weeks ago our H30 platform, which is the highest end on that specific series. And that's designed specifically for edge type deployments.
Mhm.
These are HA systems that can be all flash or hybrid disk and flash. And yeah, very, very capable systems, but kind of small, compact form factor, and
Uh-huh.
interesting. Definitely designed for edge, but also can be used in data center environments as well.
Beside the small form factor, what makes an edge system special?
Yeah, I think it's mostly comes down to form factor being lower power,
Mm-hmm.
and really having a flexibility of configuration options. And yeah, that's it's beyond that. It's not ruggedized today, and that's some sort of the areas that we're exploring too, is having more ruggedized type solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of a base model edge system that can be used in a lot of applications, but we're looking at more specific hardware
Mm-hmm.
for edge potentially in the future, especially for military applications, energy applications, things like
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, makes sense. We already spoke a little bit about liquid cooled storage, which is not demandable yet. But what are the most exciting development or innovation in the storage space that you're seeing right now?
that. Well, you mean other than the movement towards open enterprise solutions? I'm just kidding. Honestly, I think a lot of so-called innovation in storage, and again, I kind of have a contrarian take here. I see it kind of as gilding the lily. This is a phrase that I mean by that, minor improvements that are only really addressing niche needs at this point. And a lot of them are vendor driven. So basically, a differentiation that's looking for a market. So, so I don't see a lot of things that I'm super excited about that I'm like, wow, that's an incredible innovation at the storage level. However, I will say the one thing that I'm really excited about is pretty boring. And that is it's the fact that we're starting to have, and by the end of this year, we'll have NVMe drives that are larger than 100 terabytes in a 2.5-inch form factor. And then in 2026, we expect to see drives larger than 200 terabytes. And this is just a serious game changer in terms of storage density. Today, there are some, we offer 30 terabyte drives. We have some 60 terabyte drives that are going to be launched here soon. But 100 terabytes, and you start to get in the 200 terabyte range, and that small of a form factor. I mean, that is just a whole new world for storage capacity density and performance density. And again, kind of boring, but I think it's going to be a big difference maker.
It isn't that boring. So recently, I know that there's always discussions about when will be the breaking point when HDDs become more expensive per terabyte than SSDs, and the other way around. Then are also some challenges in the technology itself. HDDs live much longer than SSDs, depending on how you use it and things like that. When will be reach the next level? Now I think we have four levels in flash storage. Wolfgang, help me. Quad
Yes,
levels,
QLC.
quad cell
Ah, yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
QLC.
Yeah, QLC, exactly. When will we have the fifth, sixth, seventh level in LC and things like that? What's your point on that, or what do you think? Will SSD become much sooner, much less expensive than HDDs, much more denser,
It's it's
things like
it
that?
it's harder to say. I mean, certainly the density story is already there, but the in terms of cost, hard drives still are way out ahead of flash drives, and so
Hmm.
it's still. I don't want to get the multiple wrong, but I think it's in the 3-4 times per gigabyte. You can in terms of cost savings. So there's still a gap for flash to make up, and I know that there are certain there are certain vendors on the enterprise storage side that all they offer is flash, and they really, really, really want that to be true. That flash drives are that hard drives are a thing of the past. But if you look at the shipments from WD and Seagate and the number of hard drives they're shipping
Yeah,
especially since AI, it's only gone up. So
yeah.
I don't think that we're that close. But in terms of performance, obviously it's night and day. NVMe is far, far more performant. Density,
Mhm.
it's going to be better. But in terms of cost, I still think there's a big gap to be made up. It'll happen eventually. And certainly 100 terabyte and 200 terabyte drives are a step of the way there. But I don't think it's going to happen in the next couple of years.
Great insight. Thank you for that. So, yeah, good to know that TrueNAS has both or supports both HDDs and hybrid and SSDs or flash only. Um, are there any notable partnerships or collaborations that IX Systems has with other companies or organizations? So I think we
Yeah,
spoke a lot of about hardware, and I want to come back a little bit, speaking a little bit more about the company.
sure, no problem. Yeah, I mean, we've built our business. We've built our business on partnerships, so we're always having discussions. But I would say that most recently we have a partner, Storage. I think
Mm,
some people call them Storage. It's STORJ,
yeah.
and we've had a partnership with them for a long time, and we've sort of enhanced our partnership. And so Storage is a distributed cloud backup company based on Web3 technology, and we've enhanced our enterprise offering by offering native integration to their cloud. So now customers who don't have secondary sites can easily back up to a globally distributed cloud at a fraction of the cost of Amazon S3 or something like
Mhm.
Wasabi. But of course, TrueNAS can sync with those companies as well, with Amazon, with Azure and GCP and all the major cloud providers. Again, in terms of partnerships, our goal is to always be as interoperable as possible
Mhm.
with existing environments and to coexist with those environments, not necessarily take everything out or replace it, but coexist. So we're always looking at new partnerships um, in the background.
This is interesting because Georgie is something that differs or, yeah, that sets you apart from any other vendor I know in the market at the moment. And it's also a technology, a really emerging technology, because in what I know about Web3 technology and also about storage is that it also offers kind of immutability by itself because it's based on a blockchain and it's quite impossible to change or corrupt those data.
Yes, and encrypted by default, and all of those things because it's sharded out amongst many, many, many nodes.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a very interesting technology. We've been following them for a while, really since about 2018, and
Hmm.
then we've been partnered with them for the past couple of years, and just are increasing investment in that partnership too, and seeing a lot of great results.
This is quite interesting. Are there plans for expanding the ecosystem in that direction, integrating with other technologies like that?
Yeah. I mean, still on the subject of partnerships, are absolutely one of the things that we're doing is, and we haven't talked about this yet, but we have a Docker-based apps ecosystem, and that apps ecosystem already has nearly limitless options for the ability to enable Docker containers. So, but most of those are community supported or self-supported apps. So we provide that capability today. But really, our goal is to enhance the enterprise apps catalog by making it even easier for other vendors to integrate and offer their tech on top of TrueNAS, and allow customers basically to leverage the TrueNAS platform as a platform for data services for whatever particular use case that they may have. And so, just to make that integration as seamless as possible, as simple as installing an app and going.
This is also an interesting point. I think the app catalog is quite different between the community edition and the enterprise edition. Of course, based on supporting the enterprise edition, but also, I know that the community edition has a lot of apps that the enterprise edition does not support yet. What are the apps in the enterprise edition, or what are the most common apps supported in the enterprise edition?
Yeah, we've got a handful of apps available today on the enterprise side, and whereas on the community side, there's probably over 100 at this point. And a lot of them are community supported or community developed and offered to basically contributions by the community. And then but in order for us to fully support end to end, it has to be blessed internally, tested. There's a whole QA process, all those things. So we're just getting that off the ground now. But we've got Storj is one of them. Obviously, we'll have more tighter Veeam integration, available there, and a number of other kind of options coming out in the future. It's still early days here, but that's going to be a big focus for the company in the second half.
I think also Nextcloud is already included in the enterprise edition, isn't it?
Yeah. We have Nextcloud. I know that's popular in.
It's very popular here. That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. What advice would you give someone considering a storage solution like TrueNAS now? Why should he buy it?
I appreciate the question. I mean, I like to always say, don't take my word for it, right? Don't take the word of, don't take my word carte blanche. You can go to Gartner Peer Insights and you can read actual customer reviews of folks in the enterprise and their experience with TrueNAS. And you can see how we've earned top ratings and customer choice awards in both the primary storage and file and object storage categories. And then you can visit TrueNAS.com. You can download TrueNAS Community Edition today and be up and running to demo the software in a VM or on hardware in minutes. And then once you've kind of experienced both things, you can always reach out to us and let us know what data storage challenge you're trying to overcome. And we're here to help in any way. So again, go explore by yourself and see what our customers are saying for us, instead of just trusting what I say here or trusting our marketing, because I think that speaks volumes more than we can speak ourselves.
I think it was one of the best recommendations I ever heard in our interviews. Also, just go out there, take it and test it, and then make your own opinion. I think famous last words. Is there anything else you'd like to share about IX Systems, TrueNAS, or the future of storage with our community?
Sure. I kind of say what I always say when people ask this, which is, if we look at Linux, this is about open source and open storage. So if just like Linux, took over the enterprise data center, all technology roads in all areas of technology eventually lead to open source. It's just an eventuality. So we don't have to look any further than the Microsoft example, right? Steve Ballmer once infamously called Linux a cancer. And if you fast forward to today, under Satya Nadella's leadership, Microsoft is now one of the biggest supporters and contributors to open source. So the mentality around open source has really changed. But the reality is that storage is probably one of the last corners of the data center where this open source fully hasn't taken hold yet. So our goal with TrueNAS is to help customers gain access to all the advantages of open source for their storage while removing any of the potential risk. And we call this next era of storage, the open storage era. And I'd like to welcome anyone to come join us on this voyage. And thanks for allowing me to get on my soapbox for a little bit there, Kristen.
This is excellent, famous last words. I have nothing to add. Thank you so much for your insights and sharing your opinions with us, Brett. For me, it's time to say goodbye and my famous last words. This will be in German again, so don't wonder about that. Please stay online. We are still recording, so that's my part. Ihr habt gehört Data Explorer, die Episode 31, ein Podcast von Data Disrupted. Hört mehr Podcasts von uns mit Data Express und irgendwann auch wieder Release Patch Repeat. Lest Artikel von Kerstin Moi auf speicherguide.de oder in unserem Online-Magazin datadisrupted.tech. Abonniert uns via Blue Sky, Facebook, Mastodon, LinkedIn, RSS-Feeds oder YouTube. Folgt uns in unseren persönlichen Ansichten zur Enterprise IT der Welt und überhaupt mit Stiefkind oder Frau Stief auf Blue Sky oder etwas professioneller auf LinkedIn. Wenn euch gefällt, was wir machen, unterstützt uns mit einem Kaffee oder Tee via PayPal. Den Link gibt's in den Shownotes. Vielen Dank für eure Zeit. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Auf Wiederhören. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kirsten. Thanks for having me on.